All right. Well, welcome. This is our celebration of Law Day here in West Virginia. We are hosting a discussion with women who work in the legal profession, and we have a group of women who represent many different jobs within the legal profession. We're addressing kindergarten through 12 students. Each of us is going to talk a little bit about our jobs and what we like about our jobs, and we hope you enjoy this presentation. I'm going to start with introducing our panelists from the West Virginia Supreme Court, Justice Beth Walker. And Beth Walker, thank you for being with us today. Justice Walker.
Well, thank you, Judge Cohee. I'm thrilled to join all of you and honored to kick things off here as we talk a little bit about what we do in the legal profession in West Virginia. So if I can go ahead and start, Judge Cohee, are we ready?
Yes,
great. Again, my name is Beth Walker, and I am a justice on the Supreme Court of Appeals of West Virginia, and I live in Kanawha County, which, as you all know, is where our capital is located, and our court is located at the state capitol. I'm one of 5 justices on our court, and the title of justice is just another title for judge or another word for judge. And it usually refers to the judges who sit on a state's highest appellate court, which is what our Supreme Court of Appeals is. So our job as justices is to hear appeals of every kind from all 55 counties in West Virginia. So that means if one of the parties in a case in magistrate court or family court or circuit court doesn't agree with how the case turned out, they can appeal it to our court and we take another look at it. And that look, to use a general word, is called appellate review. When a case is appealed to us from any one of those courts, we look at everything that happened and check to see whether any errors were made. Unlike the other judges you're going to hear from today, who are usually the only judge in their courtrooms, all 5 of us sit on the bench at one time when we work together as a team on our cases. So that makes us just a little bit unique. And our court is an appellate court, as I said. So that means that we don't hear new testimony or we don't have witnesses. We don't have a jury in our courtroom. Instead, everything we do in our court is based on something that's happened already. Sometimes the lawyers who are arguing the cases that come to our court appear in Charleston in person and present those arguments to us. But again, there are no witnesses or parties usually present. And all of our arguments are actually broadcast live on YouTube. So you can check us out on argument days on the West Virginia Judicial channel if you ever want to watch us. When we decide a case, then we send out a document that's called a written opinion, which explains our decision and why we made it. So the best part of my job is giving back through public service. And 3 things I like most are talking to students like you all and other people who might come to visit us at the Capitol. I love, second, teaching people what we do in the state courts in our country. In case you didn't know, over 90% of the cases in our country are decided in state courts, not federal courts. And the third thing I love doing is writing our judicial opinions. And then 3 of the hardest things about my job is we make very important decisions that affect people's lives, especially children. We read lots and lots of very complicated documents, and that can be hard. And also setting aside, as we all do as judges, our personal opinions to make sure that we're fair and impartial in every case. And that's something that you work on every day when you're a judge. So I went to Huron High School in Huron, Ohio. If you've ever been to Cedar Point over in Ohio, you've been there or near there. After high school, I went to Hillsdale College in Michigan, and I majored in 2 things, in political science and in English. And then I went to law school at The Ohio State University in Columbus. My first job as a lawyer after law school was in West Virginia, but I didn't know anyone here. And I didn't have any family here. So I was new to West Virginia, but I fell in love and I became, I guess, what you call a West Virginian by choice and decided to stay here. And I would encourage you to think about my job as a career choice because you can make a big difference in people's lives. We help make sure everyone's cases are decided fairly and impartially according to the rule of law, no matter where you are or where you live. So thanks, Bridget. I appreciate the opportunity to participate today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us, Justice Walker. And it's my turn. My name is Bridget Cohee, and I am a circuit court judge in Berkeley County, West Virginia. And my job is to hear cases, including criminal cases brought against adults, abuse and neglect cases to protect children, juvenile cases to provide treatment for teenagers, juvenile drug court, and civil cases for money damages. I do my job by coming to the courthouse every day, and I take my seat on the bench, and I listen to the attorneys who appear before me in the cases. I listen to all sides of the story, and then it's my job to make a decision based on the law and other cases that have been ruled upon by the West Virginia Supreme Court, by the justices like Beth Walker, and by the United States Supreme Court. The best part of my job is helping people who are in crisis to get the help that they need. Three of the things that I like most about my job are listening to the attorneys arguing to advocate for their clients, helping children and teenagers who need help, and protecting children and other vulnerable people from harm. Three of the hardest things about my job are not having enough time to do everything perfectly. Sometimes you just have to be able to accept that you did your best under the circumstances and with the information that you had at the time. And that's why we have appellate review by the Supreme Court. Another hard part about my job is listening to evidence when children have been hurt and dealing with difficult people, which sometimes includes the attorneys when they are stressed and don't use their best manners. But for the most part, the attorneys are wonderful. I went to Archbishop Spalding High School in Severn, Maryland. My education after high school was 4 years of college at Mount St. Mary's in Emmitsburg, Maryland. I did a master's in counseling, which is not required, but I did that at the University of Kentucky because at that time I didn't know yet that I wanted to be a lawyer. While researching a final paper in the law library at UK, I decided that I wanted to go to law school. I practiced law for 16 years before I became a circuit court judge. I would encourage you to think about my job as a career choice because it is fulfilling, challenging, and important work that really can make a difference in the community. And with that, I'd like to introduce our family court judge, Sally Jackson. Sally, can you unmute your mic?
You got it's
there
me.
You are.
You got me?
Yes,
Great.
we do.
All right. I don't have a camera, but I am Sally Jackson. I'm a family court judge here in Berkeley County, although our circuit is Berkeley and Jefferson counties. I have to add that I was the first woman judge in the Eastern Panhandle. I've been a judge for 20 years. I was in private practice, primarily family law, for about 20 years before that. We started a family court system in 2002 as a way to better serve families. So in family court, we don't have any juries. We hear all the family stuff except what Judge Cohee talked about, which was the abuse and neglect cases involving parents and juvenile cases and their parents. So we hear the most important thing I think we do is to set child support so that parents have money coming into their house to make sure their kids are fed and clothed and have a roof over their head. We hear divorces and child custody cases and civil domestic violence cases. If there's violence between either in families or between people who are dating or living together, we hear cases to decide whether or not a civil order should be granted to keep one person away from another. But we don't do any criminal cases here either. the best part about my job is helping parents get through hard times, because a divorce is usually one of the hardest things people go through, and people can have a really hard time dealing with it. The thing I like the most about my job is parents who get along, and believe it or not, even when people are divorcing, most people who come in my courtroom do get along pretty well. And of course, the hardest thing about my job is parents who don't get along, and parents who won't listen, like they won't listen to counselors, because it can be really hard on kids when their parents don't get along. I went to Charlestown High School in Jefferson County, which they don't even have anymore. I think they made the building, I think it's a middle school now, and went to 4 years at Shepherd College in Shepherdstown, and graduated from law school at George Washington University. If you like to work hard and are interested in the law, then I would encourage you to think about being a family court judge. It's a lot of work, but it is very rewarding, and I really love it. And I can't think of anything else I'd rather do. I think I was made for this job. Thank you.
Judge Cohee, you're muted.
The challenges of our new world. Thank you so much, Judge Sally Jackson. And next, our magistrate representative, Magistrate Carmela Cesare.
Hi, my name is Carmela Cesare, and I'm a magistrate in Jefferson County. Magistrates are judges who work the front lines of the justice system. We conduct initial hearings in criminal cases called arraignments, handle emergency matters concerning domestic violence in juveniles, and we issue search warrants. We also handle the most common types of criminal and civil cases that people find themselves involved in. The criminal cases that we handle involve crimes that can carry up to 1 year in jail, which are called misdemeanors, and preliminary hearings in felony cases. These are hearings in which the issue is whether there exists probable cause to continue pursuing the felony charge. The civil cases that we hear involve amounts and controversy of up to $10,000. I do my job by conducting hearings, signing orders, and, when needed, doing legal research in preparation for my hearings. The best part about my job is that I get to help people, and I get to, through my actions, promote respect for the law and for each other. 3 of the things that I like most about my job are having the power to ensure that hearings are conducted in a way that all parties in the courtroom feel heard, so that they feel like they've had their day in court. 2, being able to ensure that the law and the procedural rules of court are followed so that the hearings are conducted fairly. And 3, being able to help ensure that the dignity of the parties is maintained. This is especially important with criminal defendants. Court hearings can be very embarrassing and difficult for people charged with crimes. These people are likely going through a very low point in their lives, and piling on by lecturing them and treating them harshly tends to do nothing but make them feel worse about themselves. And this likely contributes to the possibility that they may reoffend. So for this reason, I do my best to be welcoming and kind while maintaining the seriousness of the proceeding. And if I'm able, I'll ask the defendant how he or she is doing. I often get a positive response, and the person always seems happy that I took an interest and that he or she was treated respectfully. And I enjoy being in a courtroom in which everyone feels respected. 3 of the hardest things about my job are: 1, when people don't understand why decisions are made, such as a sentencing decision or a decision regarding the amount of bond to assign in a case. When this happens, people who disagree with the decision often don't understand the factors in the law that must be considered when making the decision, or they don't know the relevant facts involved in the situation. These people assume that the decision is wrong simply because they don't like it. They assume that the ruling was made without much thought or knowledge of the law, when in fact much thought and consideration has gone into it. So the hardest part is that with tough decisions, often no one wins. The second thing that can be difficult is working with people who represent themselves. This is called proceeding pro se. These people tend not to understand the law and the rules of court, which are there to ensure that the hearings are conducted fairly and efficiently. So sometimes they don't realize that I know very little about the facts surrounding the matter. And this can sometimes translate into people not understanding how to present their case in a way that makes sense, and it can compromise their ability to get a just result. I do my best to extract the needed information from these people in a neutral way, but some people have difficulty expressing themselves. Fortunately, I'm persistent, and usually by the end of the hearing, I and the parties have been able to get out the information needed to make a good decision. It just tends to take a bit longer, and I usually find myself missing the help of an attorney to make the case. The third thing is having to work with obviously mentally ill people who haven't gotten the help or the resources they need for whatever reason. The high school that I went to is Stearns High School and is located in the state of Maine. My education after high school was a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Maine, followed by a law degree from the West Virginia University College of Law. Now, even though I do have a law degree, you don't have to have a law degree to become a magistrate, but having a solid legal background is extremely helpful to your ability to do a good job as a magistrate. And a fun fact about me is that I also have a master's degree in therapeutic herbalism from Maryland University of Integrative Health. I'd encourage you to think about my job as a career choice because the judiciary is the third branch of government. Its function is to resolve conflicts in a civilized and hopefully a fair and just manner. So this is meaningful and important work, and it can be fun and interesting. You meet many different people and you learn a lot. And you also get to be in charge to some extent. And I say to some extent because being a good judge means being a good leader, which means you let others shine whenever you can. You get to do that by ensuring that the hearings are conducted fairly, the parties feel heard, and their dignity is maintained throughout. And when that happens, it's been a good day for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Magistrate Cesare. And next, we are going to hear from a prosecuting attorney, Prosecutor Coley.
Thank you. My name is Coley, and I'm an assistant prosecuting attorney here in Berkeley County, West Virginia. My job is to represent the Department of Health and Human Resources in prosecuting child abuse and neglect cases, but also to represent the state of West Virginia in prosecuting juvenile delinquency cases and truancy cases. I do that by working with social workers, youth service workers, attorneys, and police officers to determine what's in the best interest of the children and families that we're working with in our cases. And then applying the law to those cases and trying to get the best outcome for everybody involved. The best part of my job is feeling like you make a difference. The idea that helping get juveniles better options and helping them make better choices, and also helping protect abused and neglect children. 3 things that I like about my job is being around people who are like-minded, who want to make a difference in the lives of children, especially the children that are around us during this opioid crisis and everything else going on in our communities. I like the mental exercise that comes with working in a courtroom with an active docket. You're always finding new things to talk about. You're having new issues to address, and it just keeps you always on your feet. So I like that as well. And the last thing I like is feeling like you're doing something, again, that matters to people. You're not just going to a job that you feel like doesn't make a difference. You can see actively how you're helping people. You can put names and faces to each case that you've had. 3 things I dislike about my job are also the people. You meet some very unscrupulous individuals in your cases, and you have to put those feelings aside, and it's hard sometimes. I also dislike some of the cases that you're working with where you're looking at kids who've been abused. They're not easy to look at. It's hard to think of somebody who would be able to do that to people, and it gets hard day in and day out to do that. So it's also very important to have something that helps you de-stress after that. And the final thing I don't like about my job is sometimes having to accept that there's not going to be a right answer. And that does happen. In these cases, there are going to be sometimes where you have to kind of split the difference. The law doesn't allow some things. The people can't do some things even though you'd like them to. I went to high school in Jefferson County. I went to Jefferson County High School right here in West Virginia. And after that, I went to Shepherd University, where I double majored in psychology and English composition. I actually took a more non-traditional path to education. I stopped college maybe 2.5 years in and worked full-time as a residential instructor for kids with complex disabilities, which I loved. But it made me realize that I wanted a more active role in how these kids got into this place to begin with, which is when I decided to become a lawyer. I went back to college, finished my degree, and went to UDC David A. Clark School of Law, where I graduated. I would encourage you to think about my job as a career choice because you have a very active role in shaping how the law is applied on a day-to-day basis. And then the obvious reason is you get to help so many people in so many ways, and it's one of the most fulfilling things you could probably do. And thank you.
And a fun fact about Kelly Coley is she was my law clerk. So I feel like a proud mama every time I hear her talk in her new role as prosecuting attorney here in Berkeley County. And our next representative is a defense attorney, and we have Stephanie Scales-Sharon.
Thank you, Judge Cohee, and thank you for inviting me to be part of Law Day with all these distinguished ladies on this panel. I'm a defense attorney, practicing primarily in the Eastern Panhandle. Usually my cases are in Berkeley and Jefferson counties. My job is to represent defendants in criminal cases where they've been allegations of criminal activities against them. I also represent juveniles when petitions are filed by the state against a minor alleging that they've committed criminal actions or incorrigibility. I also represent respondent parents when social services such as CPS files cases against them alleging wrongdoing. I do my job by representing a client from the beginning to the end of their case. It requires me to do legal research, file motions on their behalf, conduct discovery where I try to obtain as much information as possible about the case or request information from another party. In my criminal and juvenile cases, I will request jury trials to be conducted and present and cross-examine witnesses and present evidence for the jury to consider. Sometimes when a defendant admits that they did some amount of wrongdoing or some amount of culpability, then I will try to work together with law enforcement and the state through the process of plea bargaining. Sometimes I try to work out sentences for my clients that involve treatment options as well. A lot of times my clients suffer from underlying mental health or substance abuse issues that contribute to their criminal conduct. As part of these plea bargains, we try to work out treatment options that help those individuals have a better chance of not reoffending in the future. The best part of my job is that in some cases I get to play a role where I really help a client make a positive change in their life. It might be getting them into inpatient treatment, outpatient treatment, or it might be getting them supervision through the probation department, It might also be helping a parent in an abuse and neglect case get the services so that they learn how to be a better parent going forward. Sometimes a defense attorney can act as an agent of change in these clients' lives so that they come out of the situation better and are less likely to repeat the behaviors that got them into legal trouble. 3 things that I like about my job is that I do have some flexibility in my scheduling. I'm in private practice, which means that other than the court or the judges, I don't have a boss that I report to. So I can pick and choose when I need to do my work, whether it's on the weekends or late at night, early in the morning. And I can also focus around my children and my family schedule to get my work done here. I also like that every day my job is different. I have no idea what clients walking through my door are going to have to say and what story they're going to tell me. So my responsibilities are constantly changing. I might be helping somebody with estate planning one day, and I might be in a jury trial in a criminal case the next day. I also get to see lots of different aspects of the law, not just as a defense counsel. I like that each day is different and that I'm not chained to my desk 9 to 5. I also like that I essentially get paid to think and talk. I get to be in control of what arguments I make to the court on behalf of my client, obviously conferring with their input. But I do get to spend my time learning about new areas of the law, researching and crafting arguments to help make the best case for my clients. Three hardest things about my job is that it does require really long hours. And while I have flexibility to determine what those hours are, it can seem like there's never enough hours in the day or that the responsibilities are never ending. Also, in the types of work that I do, I represent individuals who've been charged with some of the worst crimes, murder, sexual offenses, and child abuse. It can take an emotional toll seeing those types of cases day in and day out. You have to remind yourself that you can't judge the situation by the act the person did, but rather recognize that they're still a human being. Last, there are certain cases that no matter how hard I work, how much research I do, or how good my arguments are, they're just not winnable cases. Either the law is not on your side or your client's facts aren't on your side. And when that happens, it can be very frustrating because I like to believe that the harder you work, the more likely it is you're going to be successful. But there are certain cases that just aren't winnable. For my background, I went to Martinsburg High School here in Berkeley County, West Virginia. Upon graduation, I then got a bachelor's degree in psychology and a minor in political science from West Virginia University. After WVU, I worked for a few years at the Psychiatric Institute of Washington, where I got to help with people with mental illness, which I think helps me in my job today, including children with mental illness. After working for a few years, I realized I wanted to go back to school to be a lawyer. I attended law school in South Carolina at the Charleston School of Law. I would encourage you to think about my job as a career choice because there are certain cases and certain clients where you can walk away really feeling like you made a difference in their lives. Maybe you got to help somebody get off drugs, or you help somebody get proper mental health treatment, and you might see them in the grocery store 2 or 3 years from now, and they actually thank you. Might even tell you that they didn't realize at the time how great, how bad things were, but now that they have had time to reflect on what happened and look back, they want to thank you and tell you that you really helped them out. And those are the types of rewarding experiences that you can take away from this job. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gail Sharon. And I also want to thank you for being the defense attorney. She volunteers on our juvenile drug court treatment team to make sure that we give the right due process rights to our juveniles when they need to be sanctioned. And she's just a great, valuable resource for our children in that capacity. So next we have guardian ad litem who works representing children. And I think she joined us. Is Miss Weiss on? Okay.
She's been on twice and keeps disappearing. She's gone.
That would be a technical difficulty that we're having. So hopefully she'll be able to join us before we finish our presentation. I'll introduce our law clerk representative, Emily Mowry.
Hi, thank you, Judge Cohee. My name is Emily Mowry, and right now I am working as a judicial law clerk here in Berkeley County, West Virginia. And I'm excited to get to tell you a little bit about my job today. What is a judicial law clerk? Well, that's technically a licensed lawyer here in West Virginia who works specifically with one judge and is assigned to help that judge with a variety of tasks to prepare for hearings, do research, and attend all the hearings as well. I generally will participate in all of the cases that the judge hears. We have abuse and neglect cases, juvenile cases, criminal cases, and civil cases. The judge that I work for also does a juvenile drug court that helps teenagers in our community who are struggling and need treatment for substance use. And I also will sometimes help with additional projects that come up, such as working on the Law Day project and helping draft new legislation for a legislative committee. In preparation for hearings and trials, I'll often help the judge compile all the documents that we need from the cases. Attorneys file a lot of paper, and part of my responsibility is tracking down all the necessary paperwork and documents that were filed for a case so that the judge can review that beforehand and know the information she needs to make decisions. I also do research on a wide range of legal issues. And one example of this is the rule of law, which was one of the topics of Law Day this year. And sometimes attorneys will argue or disagree about what rule of law applies to a case. And my job is to research both of them and put together a report for the judge on all of the different options and give that to her so that she can make a decision about which rule of law to apply. I also will attend hearings and trials with the judge and be available to answer questions about the court's calendar, which is called the docket, or look information up in the case records. And I also will take notes on the hearings, although the official notes are taken by someone called the court reporter, who you'll hear from next. I also serve sometimes as the go-between for attorneys and the judge on any legal questions they might have. The best part of my job is seeing how the court system can help people in our community. Sometimes people hear court or judge and they immediately think about a system created to punish criminals. But as you're learning today, the legal system includes so many more people than just lawyers, judges, and police officers. My job really lets me see how much social workers, therapists, teachers and school counselors, child advocates, victim advocates, peer coaches, doctors, and probation officers actually work in these cases. Of course, the big cases you see on the news involve crimes and people who break the law, but the day-to-day cases that no one really talks about are actually designed to help people in crisis, whether they're struggling with mental illness, drug use, homelessness, inappropriate parenting, or school absences. So that's really the best part of my job, is seeing how much the community members in our local court system truly want to help people rather than punish them. What are the 3 hardest things about my job? The first one would probably be seeing so many people struggling in our community. It is a lot to deal with a lot of times, and you do have to make sure that you balance that and have a lot of time to yourself to recuperate and mentally de-stress. I do struggle a lot with the jury trials. I find them hard sometimes because they can be very interesting to sit in and listen to, but they're also very long and can sometimes get a little boring if you go on and on with some of the witnesses, especially with a lot of the science and technology that might not be as interesting, but it's always fascinating to see how the jury listens and pays attention, even if I find it boring. The other hardest thing about my job is explaining to family members or friends that I can't really talk about most of our cases because a lot of them are confidential. And that's sometimes hard for people to understand because they want to hear, oh, what's been going on? But you have to tell them, no, we're not allowed to talk about what happens in these cases to protect people's identities and information. What 3 things do I like most about my job? Probably the most would be the happy hearings. That's what I call them. Adoptions, cases where kids are reunited with their parents after they've been able to overcome their struggles. I just really enjoy getting to see families brought back together. The second thing would be seeing people get the help they need, and get the treatment or the services that the community can provide them. And the third thing that I like the most would be learning so much about the legal system and the laws here in West Virginia to help me learn how to practice on my own. And how do you become a judicial law clerk? Well, how I did it was I graduated from high school after being homeschooled from the age of 3 all the way through graduation. I went to college and got my bachelor's degree from Patrick Henry College in history. And then I took a couple years off and worked and went to law school and got my Juris Doctor degree from Penn State Dickinson Law. And then I got the job with the judge working as a law clerk. And then prior to starting my job, I studied for and took a bar exam to become a licensed lawyer. And while I was working, I found out I passed and I got sworn in at the Supreme Court so that I could practice as a lawyer whenever I finish my clerkship here. So why should you be a lawyer? Well, from reading the many thoughtful essays that were submitted for our contest, I know that many of you are already starting to see and identify injustice and struggles in your communities and are sharing how concerned and worried you are about these problems. West Virginia needs more lawyers, especially ones who see the injustices you told us about and want to work to fix them. If you're interested in being a lawyer or even just in learning more about what lawyers do, I would encourage you to reach out to lawyers or judges in your community and ask if you can shadow them for a day and learn more about their jobs. I did that in high school with one of the lawyers in my community, and it was really helpful because he gave me some great advice on what majors to look at in college and how to start preparing for a career in law even while I was in high school. And if you have any questions specifically about being a judicial law clerk, I would be happy to answer them for you. But I hope all of you will consider being a lawyer or working in the legal profession in some capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And Emily just completed a summary of 120 pages of all of the new cases in the abuse and neglect to help the judges who need to learn what the decisions were. And she deserves great thanks for all the judges who are going to use that as a resource. And I see Tracy Weiss was able to rejoin us. She is going to speak on behalf of Guardian ad litem representing children. If you could unmute your microphone. It looks like she's having a problem unmuting her microphone. So we will come back to Tracy, and next we will hear from fabulous court reporter, Marcy Chandler.
Thank you, Judge Cohee. Hello, my name is Marcy Chandler. I'm an official court reporter for Judge Bridget Cohee in the 23rd Judicial Circuit in Martinsburg, West Virginia. I've been a court reporter for 28 years in West Virginia. My job is to capture the spoken word of all circuit court proceedings and prepare a verbatim transcript. I do that by utilizing a stenographic court reporting machine along with computer-aided transcription. Interesting job content is the best part of my job. I can go from doing a murder trial, which I'm doing right now, to a medical malpractice case the next week. Some of the things I like most about my job have been providing closed captions for hearing impaired individuals. I have had the pleasure of traveling throughout the state of West Virginia to provide this service to litigants. I also was able to give a real-time demonstration for students at the Romney School for the Deaf. A few things a human court reporter can do as opposed to a digital recording are capture testimony with 99% accuracy, handle multiple speakers at the same time, identify different speakers, and understand different accents. Some of the hardest things about my job are fast talkers. As a court reporter, I can write at the speed of 225 words a minute. Unfortunately, many people can talk and read at even faster than that. My job is to slow them down so we can get an accurate record of the proceedings. I get to work with judges, attorneys, and witnesses with some of the best legal minds in the community. I also get to hear expert witnesses in various fields testify about interesting issues. I went to the Chambersburg Area Senior High School in Pennsylvania. After high school, I attended the Hagerstown Business College, where I received an associate's degree in court reporting. I would encourage you to become a court reporter if you think receiving an associate's degree is for you rather than a 4-year degree. In 2 years, you can be out working in this exciting field. Because we are experiencing a serious court reporter shortage, court reporters are needed everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. And our next participant is a judicial assistant and a court administrator, Carol Miller.
Thanks, Judge Cohee. Hello, my name is Carol Miller. I am the court administrator in Berkeley, Jefferson, and Morgan Counties, and also serve as the business court executive director. Prior to this position, I did serve as a judicial assistant for close to 26 years. As the trial court administrator, I assist the chief judge with any administrative matters in the circuit. This may include matters pertaining to the circuit clerk's office, magistrate court, or probation. It may involve anything from personnel matters to process or procedural changes. It may also include appointments or requests for senior status coverage for a magistrate or a circuit judge. I do my job by serving as the liaison between the chief and other chambers, the Supreme Court Administrative Office, Magistrate Court, and many others. I also may draft and circulate administrative orders, assist in docket alignment to ensure fair case distribution amongst the judges, maintain leave records, and numerous other duties. The second part of my job involves the business court division. This is a division of 7 judges throughout the state that are appointed by the Chief Justice. They hear business cases that have been deemed complex by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. With this position, I assist with assignment of cases, serve as a case manager, coordinate courtrooms, assist with travel, and maintain all statistics that are then put into an annual report at the end of the year. I began my career as a judge's assistant, so I'll tell you a little bit about that too. As a judge's assistant, you are the most trusted person to help and support the judge. Usually, no one gets to the judge but through their assistant. They are the first person, and oftentimes the only person, that callers or visitors may interact with. The judge's assistant serves as the scheduler, case manager, and doorkeeper. In my opinion, the doorkeeper was the most difficult task. You would be surprised how many people want to talk to the judge or just ask a quick question. But there are 2 reasons the assistant must screen visitors and phone calls. First, a judge is very busy, and when they aren't in the courtroom, they're working on research or meeting with their law clerk to discuss a motion or writing orders. So the fewer distractions, the better. Second, and more importantly, the Code of Judicial Conduct generally does not allow a judge to speak to parties or attorneys about a case unless they're in the courtroom on the record with all sides present. So it's important that the judge's assistant screen each person or caller to determine if the judge can or would be willing to speak to them. What I like most about my job is working with so many different people throughout the state. Other things I like about my job, every day is something new. I'm never bored, and I truly enjoy assisting others, including other judges, assistants, magistrate court staff, and even the public. 3 of the hardest things about the job: scheduling. It's not always easy scheduling and coordinating calendars and courtrooms with so many busy judges and lawyers. Second, although I mentioned that I enjoy assisting the public, that can sometimes be the hardest part of the job too. And third, conflict resolution. As I mentioned before, various issues and conflicts fall on the chief judge, and oftentimes they come to me first. I enjoy trying to resolve them, but it's not always easy. As far as education, I graduated from George Washington High School in Charleston, then completed my associate's degree in paralegal studies from Shepherd University and my bachelor's degree in legal studies from American Public University, both while working as a judicial assistant. I would encourage you to think about a career in administration, whether it be public administration, court administration, or even office administration. If you have good organizational and communication skills, are willing to stay current on information technology, and enjoy assisting others, this may be a career to consider. It is satisfying to know you are part of the support system that makes your organization successful.
Thank you so much, Carol. And it appears that Tracy Weiss is on. Can you unmute your mic?
Clearly, being a technical whiz is not required for my job, so I apologize, folks. If folks can hear me, I'll go ahead.
We can hear you.
Okay. My name is Tracy Weiss, and I'm an attorney in private practice in the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia, primarily in Berkeley County. And one area of law I practice in is abuse and neglect. Abuse and neglect cases are cases typically filed by the department where they allege that one or more parent or caretaker custodian has been abusive or neglectful to children. I currently represent children the majority of the time, and that's a guardian ad litem position, but I've represented parents, grandparents, foster parents, other caretakers. My job includes going to court, reading documents, reports, medical reports, psychological reports, meeting with children, their caretakers, sometimes their teachers, their therapists. One thing about being a guardian ad litem that's a little different than, and I suspect you've already heard from Ms. Gail Sharon, is that when you represent adults, you are supposed to advocate for the position that they want to put forward, essentially at their direction. With children, you advocate for what you believe is in their best interest, which is a little bit different, although sometimes it is the same position, doesn't have to be. The best part about my job is the ability to hopefully have some positive effect on children and families, and help them get in better situations so that they can move forward, and hopefully as a family unit, if not at least so that children can have some permanency. The other part, or another part about my job that I like is the flexibility, and that's primarily due to the fact that I'm in private practice. I'm a solo attorney and have no other attorneys that I work with. In a firm, obviously I work with other attorneys and I have occasional office help. So I do have flexibility, and don't necessarily punch a clock other than when I have court hearings or MDTs. And those are meetings that you typically have in an abuse and neglect case where all the parties attend. Another thing I like about the kind of law that I do, at least when I'm a guardian ad litem, is even though you have many different parties in the case, parents, the department, essentially the overall goal is to try to get the best outcome for my clients, the children. So everybody is really working towards that. Now, people have different ideas how you get there, and sometimes the parent's idea is not the same as my idea, but the goal is essentially to protect children and to keep them safe. Things that I don't like about my job, or 3 things I don't like about my job, is sometimes it can be scary not knowing if you can protect a child, or if when you go to return children, whether or not their parents are really ready for that. We try to make sure that they are, but we're not mind readers, and so that's scary. Sometimes when you go to reunify children, you kind of cross your fingers and hold your breath, and hopefully, everybody has made the corrections they need to. Another thing about that I don't like about my job so much is really, it's nonstop. These cases come day in and day out. It can be a very heavy workload there. It's job security, certainly, but at the same time, these cases, pandemics, snowstorms, summertime, nothing stops them. They keep coming. And because a guardian ad litem position, and most of the attorneys who participate in abuse and neglect cases are court appointed, the final thing that is not so desirable about my job is that you're paid at a court appointed rate, and sometimes the state is slow at paying. So those are things I think people need to take into consideration. I went to a public high school, Jefferson County High School in Jefferson County, West Virginia. And after high school, I went to college for 4 years, got a bachelor's of art in law and society. And then I went to law school for 3 years at Loyola University in New Orleans. I think if you're going to go into law, I think you should certainly consider doing some kind of public service work if you can, even, and I apologize, I'm right next to a tray. Even if it's just for a couple of years, but the good thing about my job, and why I think a lot of people should consider it, not necessarily a lot of people should do it, because I think you have to be committed, is your clients are truly deserving. Children absolutely need to be protected. I don't think that's ever in question. And so there are people that always need to have somebody advocating for them. And so it's something that if you want to try to do something positive, I think it's something that you should look into. That's it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Weiss. I'm so glad you were able to join us, even with a bit of difficulty with the technology. And next up, we have a probation officer who works in our juvenile drug court. So if this is Ms. Erica Reiner.
Thank you, Judge. My name is Erica Reiner, and I am a probation officer with the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals in the 23rd Circuit. Of the 31 circuits within the state, the 23rd is comprised of Berkeley County, Morgan County, and Jefferson County. Specifically, I'm assigned to the juvenile drug court caseload, which is where I work very closely with Judge Cohee for Berkeley County cases. And likewise in Jefferson County, I work very closely with Judge McLaughlin. A fun fact about probation officers is that we are not law enforcement officers. There tends to be a confusion about that. But instead, we are officers of the court, which means we answer to the directives of our judges in the county or the counties, in my sake, that we work with, along with the 5 Supreme Court justices there in Charleston. What I like about my job is being able to impact the youth in our community in achieving life goals and sobriety, along with aiding in creating more positive family dynamics for the juveniles and their parents or guardians. Some of the daily tasks of a juvenile PO is conducting school visits, home visits, and that at times require us to perform search and seizures, agency visits to other programs that the juveniles are required to participate in, along with conducting drug screens that are in the form of urinalysis, preliminary breath tests for alcohol abuse, or the collection of saliva from the individuals, which is sent to a toxicology lab for further analysis. More specifically, as a drug court officer, we find ourselves in training with our state coordinator a great deal to ensure we're always up to speed on any changes with a lawful approach to our job, new approaches to treatment, and other aspects to serve our participants to the best of our abilities. 3 of the things I like about my job is getting to know the youth in our community, networking with local law enforcement agencies, treatment team members, and other vital community members who help our programs run very strong. And lastly, seeing the long-term effects of drug court and how it changed the lives of our participants. 3 things that I don't like is seeing the trauma you hear about firsthand when you're in the homes of the youth and their families. As well, learning to separate yourself mentally from the situations you experience at work to that of being home with your family, because you never want to cross over those two. And one of the other things that I don't particularly like is knowing that sometimes the services that you're trying to assist a juvenile with and their families may not be enough. And so sometimes it means handing the situation to other professionals in the juvenile services field to offer more options for them to get the treatment that they need, not only as an individual, but also as a family. As far as my education goes, I graduated from high school in 2009 from Monticello High School, which is in Charlottesville, Virginia, and later received my bachelor's degree in criminal justice with a minor in forensics. Currently, I'm a graduate student with West Virginia University, a part of their Master of Legal Studies program. I encourage you to consider the position of a probation officer for your career, as you will be one of the individuals on the front lines of community corrections, along with working in the judicial branch of government, and not to mention the impact to those around you. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. And thank you to all of our panel members. We were to have one other participant, a DHHR caseworker, Miss Bree Ambers, who works really hard as a youth service worker in our cases. Unfortunately, she was traveling and not able to get on. But I want to say thank you, and I would like to give the final word to our Justice Beth Walker, if you'd like to sign us off.
Well, thank you, Judge Cohee. And I, for one, have enjoyed so much listening to everyone speak about their job for a couple of reasons. One is hearing all of the different kinds of jobs you can have with a law degree or in the legal realm, in the legal area. So you can work with a law degree, you can work without a law degree, as you heard. And so the other common thread that I heard is just a sincere desire to help people. And you might not think of that first when you think about the legal profession. But as you heard from all these great dynamic women, that is what we do. And it is what motivates us. And even when things are hard, we know that we are working to make a difference. So to my co-panelists, thanks for inspiring me a little bit today, hearing about everything that you do. And it's been an honor to be on the panel with you. And to Judge Cohee, thank you for putting this amazing event together. You did a great job.
Thank you. On the count of 3, happy Law Day. 1, 2, 3. Happy Law Day. Have a great evening, everyone.